Hey everybody, Nathan here with WCFab. Today we're talking about our mini project again. So last time when you guys saw this car, we loosely had the front subframe mounted up in there. Had the engine on a stand, had just gotten the cylinder head back from the machine shop. We're talking about doing ARP head studs, climatic gasket, all the things that were going on with the engine. From there, we finally got it all back together, resealed the whole thing. Any gasket that, needed to be replaced or was questionable, anything of that nature, it got done. We don't want to get to the point where we got this car back together and we got to deal with some nagging little leak, anything like that. Again, that's the start of this whole project, so that's something we're trying to avoid. We went through the transmission, popped open the case, checked out all the gears, synchros, all of that, make sure that we weren't putting a transmission in this car that was going to have an issue. Everything looked really clean. We got that sealed back up. New clutch, flywheel was resurfaced, new throwout bearing. Again, everything that you would typically do in this kind of a project to avoid having to go back in it, we're trying to do that. So beyond that point, we got the engine transmission fully dressed, bolted to the subframe, and we got that now back in the car. So we're trying to make some final adjustments to the chassis, the body of the car, and make everything fit. On the front of the motor, you'll see the header. We had to cut out a decent portion of the front support area to make the header fit. Also, the alternator has some custom brackets that bolt it on the front of the engine, not on the rear of the engine like you would see in some other cars or factory on this engine. That way we had to cut that out as well. So we're kind of playing with the alternators. Originally, we were planning on doing the factory alternator for that engine. The amount that we would have had to cut out was going to be pretty tremendous. We were trying to avoid that as much as possible. So we've been going back and forth a couple different alternators, trying to see which one could work the best for us with minimal cutting. At the end of the day, we're going to have to cut something out of it. This thing's getting to the point where it's kind of more of a race car now than just your standard everyday vehicle. Not saying that it's going to have race car tendencies or anything of that nature, but it's definitely quite modified beyond OEM spec. So with the subframe being mounted in the car, we were able to start laying out some of the front brakes. We got the axles in, all the front hubs done. Brakes kind of laid out, still need to do brake lines, clutch lines, things of that nature, kind of the smaller, tidy up things. Still got to work on the rear subframe, getting that all bolted in. In our previous video, we mentioned that Matt might want to road course this car. So when we started having more conversation based off that, we were talking about structural integrity and safety. So we started thinking about roll cages. Could we potentially build something in-house? Yeah, absolutely. The time and the fabrication that would go into that, maybe there's a better route. So there are companies out there that make bolt-in roll cages for these cars. So we opted, price point wise, to go with that route versus building a custom cage for this car. Now, when we decided to go with the roll cage, we ran into some other questionable aspects of the car. Found some rust down underneath the front floorboards. Again, this is an older car. This is from 1971. So rust happens, depending on where this car came from. Who knows the type of winters and other elements that it's been in its whole life. So we talked with Matt. We opted to go with floor pans. We had those put in. Found a paint that was really close to the factory match that we were able to touch up the floorboard areas. We also were able to touch up the firewall of the car as well, since we had to modify that a few different times. From that point on, now it's much more structurally sound. He can feel much more confident about taking this thing to the track. If something were to happen, there's a lot of safety features now on the car to be able to, deal with that, take care of that. Beyond that point, we're still working on some other final touches, some other things that we still need to work on and finish up with the car. Would be the rear subframe, rear brakes, rear suspension setup. Fuel system, something that we still need to lay out. Once we start getting some more hard parts bolted onto the car, we can start to lay out a fuel system, figure out what we're gonna need for that. Brake lines, clutch line, exhaust. There's still plenty of other things that we're going to be working on and getting figured out. On the engine side of things, we got a standalone system, a tucked dry-wire engine harness with one of their standalone fuse box kits and a OBD1 ECU from a Honda P28. That will allow us to communicate with the car and allow the car to run in this different chassis. So we've been doing wire modifications to the stock harness, trying to figure out certain powers, get everything to function again like it was stock. Got the radiator loosely mocked up. It's a very tight fit. We're gonna have to figure out some special radiator hoses, figure out how to make the fan fit. All right, everybody, thanks for tuning in on this episode of the Mini Project. Again, I'm Nathan with WCFab. Thanks for watching.